Shaking in My Boots by Tess Montague, illustrated by Kelly Kennedy. Idiom tales, sayings about clothing. Hi there, I'm Kevin Caruso, and I'm in the 5th grade. Want to know what I did on my summer vacation? I got stranded on a desert island. Idioms are well-known phrases that mean something different from what the words actually say. Idioms use lively and colorful language to conjure up images in the reader's mind. For that reason, they are remembered and often passed down from generation to generation. Rags to riches and button your lip are two popular clothing idioms. Read on to learn 12 more. I may be young, but I'm a darn good sailor. Think I'm acting too big for my britches? Well, I'm not. The captain says I'm the best first mate he ever had, and he should know. He's my dad. To be too big for your britches means to act conceited or to have an inflated sense of self-worth. This is an American idiom that dates back more than 200 years. Britches is old-fashioned slang for pants. Now let's continue with my story. My dad and I were hired to take a group of people on a one-day cruise. The passengers included Mr. and Mrs. Puffington, their daughter Winifred, and her dog Winston. I liked Winston immediately. Winifred, however, seemed like a real goody two-shoes. Goody two-shoes is an idiom used to describe people who try to act perfect. The phrase is based on a popular children's story, The History of Little Goody Two-Shoes, published in England in 1765. The other two passengers were Dr. Beeber and Alexis Sparkle. Dr. Beeber was a brilliant professor. He spoke 5 languages. Alexis Sparkle was a glamorous actress. She arrived dressed to the nines. Dressed to the nines describes someone wearing fashionable and attention-grabbing clothing. This idiom became popular in the 1800s, but no one is certain of its origin. Maybe it's based on an Old English idiom, dressed to the nine, which means fashionable all the way up to your eyes. Ein. The voyage started well. Then a humongous storm hit. There was thunder and lightning. There were wild winds and giant waves. Needless to say, I was shaking in my boots. Shaking in your boots means to be extremely anxious or scared. Can't you just picture a frightened person standing in big boots shaking? Other versions of this idiom include quaking in your boots and shaking in your shoes. Long story short, our boat crashed on a desert island. We hollered and hollered for help, but there was no one to hear our cries. Tired and hungry, we were hanging by a thread. Hanging by a thread means that someone is in an unsafe position. This idiom is based on a 2,400-year-old Greek story, The Sword of Damocles. Damocles prepares a feast for the king, but it's a trick. The king looks up. There's a sword about to fall from the ceiling onto his head. The sword is hanging by a thread. It was a scary situation, but my dad took charge. He told us to buckle down and come up with a plan. To get off the island, we need to work together. Buckle down means to work seriously and hard. It's an old idiom based on knights buckling their suits of armor to prepare for serious combat. Dr. Beeber put on his thinking cap. He thought and thought. Then he got an idea. He took a stick and wrote "help" in giant letters in 5 different languages. Now people from different cultures will be able to help us, he said. Put on your thinking cap means to concentrate. Because your brain's in your head, it makes sense to put on a cap. Think hard. This is an American idiom from the 1800s. An earlier British idiom, considering cap, dates to the 1600s. Next, Alexis Sparkle stepped forward. I, too, have an ace up my sleeve, she said dramatically. Alexis rummaged in her purse and pulled out a mirror. She held it up to the sun, making a bright flash that could be seen for 100 miles. To have an ace up your sleeve means that a person has an advantage, perhaps one that others don't know about. This is an idiom from the old Wild West, where cowboys played cards and often cheated. A cowboy with an ace up his sleeve had a secret advantage in a card game. My turn, announced Mrs. Puffington. She rubbed 2 sticks together and made a gigantic bonfire. The smoke rose high into the air for all to see. Darling, said Mr. Puffington, your survival skills really knocked my socks off. Knock your socks off is an idiom that means to impress or amaze. Other similar idioms include knock you off your feet and throw you for a loop. Last but not least, it was Winifred's turn. She had a bee in her bonnet about the best way to save the day. She and Winston climbed 2 trees and began waving palm leaves back and forth to attract attention. Pretty clever. I guess Winifred wasn't so bad after all. If you have a bee in your bonnet, it means you have been struck by an idea and are obsessed. The idiom first appeared in Mad Maid's Song, a 1648 English poem by Robert Herrick. It's a vivid idiom. Isn't having an idea you can't shake kind of like having a bee buzzing in a bonnet? And a bonnet is like a hat. A few hours later, we were in luck. A plane was buzzing overhead, and all the commotion caught the pilot's eye. Look, shouted my father. We're saved, screamed Winifred. Well, I'll eat my hat, I exclaimed. To eat your hat means to be incredibly surprised. After all, eating a hat would be a surprising and unexpected thing to do. This is a popular English language idiom used by writers such as Charles Dickens. The pilot landed her plane on the island and rescued us. Way to work together, said my dad. You really earned your stripes. And that's what I did on my summer vacation. What did you do? To earn your stripes means that you have shown you have skills and can accomplish an important task. This idiom is based on a military custom where skillful soldiers earn stripes to wear on their uniforms. And now, my friends, it is time for Idiom Match and an assignment in, you guessed it, Schoology.